Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Curt Schilling Baseball Show, episode 47. We had a really nice list of stuff to do, including John defending himself and being right, and some other cool stuff. And we'll get to it, but I want to start a story just kind of popped up that that I want to talk about. And it's so there's a show called Foul Play. It's a podcast, and former Major League catcher AJ Pierzynski is a co-host. They had Mark McGwire on the other day, and well, here's the headline: Major League Baseball legend absolutely furious over steroid era disrespect. Mark McGwire isn't happy over the fact that steroid era players continue to face disrespect, and he let everyone know on Wednesday how he felt. Right. Let me preface this entire piece with a couple things. I'm a Mark McGwire guy. I love the man. I've always liked him. He's a genuinely good dude. He's just a great guy. He's a nice guy. He was always a friendly guy. Just a good guy. But he cheated his ass off. And here's the thing. It's going under the radar in a way that I didn't expect it to be. But basically, if you remember Mark McGwire, when we were in front of, and I'm going to say it throughout the piece, I love Mark. I've always liked him. When we were in front of Congress, Mark was one of the guys that said, "I'm not here to talk about the past." He's never fully admitted it, but he did on this show. Quote, "I didn't need to do it, and I apologize for it. But there was a lot of effing hard work that went in behind all the crap people wanted to give me." All right, a couple things. First of all, again, he apologized, and which is the first time he's publicly admitted anything. And we know, and I'm going to keep saying this. I love the guy. I feel, but I don't understand the anger. And I'm going to say this. He mentions this a couple times in the piece. Obviously, steroid accusation and admissions have brutalized McGwire's career. In retrospect, he still isn't in the Baseball Hall of Fame, has hardly been considered seriously over many years on the ballot. While he got reacclimated in baseball as a coach for the 3 different franchises in the 2010s, McGwire is still upset over the disrespect that's followed him. The iconic McGwire made headlines after sounding off on Foul Territory. TV co-host AJ Pierzynski asked McGwire if he felt he and other players have been disrespected. And the quote, but there was a lot of effing hard work. And let me just stop and say this. Yes, listen, you can argue that the steroid stuff was a shortcut. I still believe most of these guys did it for bounce back ability to be able to recover faster than everybody else, which is a major advantage. But, well, here, follow this. AJ says, "Do you feel like you're being unfairly punished, or maybe you're a group? Maybe I should say the group of you, not maybe singling you out just as yourself," which is, come on, dude, ask the question. But kind of what of that whole group of, again, the same kind of people who are being unfairly punished because of bias or whatever you want to call it. McGwire says, "Well, it seems like it. That's what it is. I think I heard Barry say it the other day. There were no rules and no regulations. Believe me, trust me, if there were any rules in place, that stuff would have never happened. There was no testing, no nothing." So it's like, and I agree with what Barry was saying. Listen, that was the culture. That's what was going on back in those days, and whatever. But I can personally tell you from me, knowing me, listen, I didn't need to do it, and I apologize for it. But there was a lot of effing hard work that went behind all the crap that people want to give me that about what I did. Preface it again. I love Mark. I do. But this comment is so anti-Mark McGwire, because this is so just replace Mark McGwire in that quote. Hey, Bill.
Yeah.
I want to ask you this. Replace Mark McGwire in that entire comment with Lance Armstrong.
Right.
Is it not the same exact
It's
thing?
the exact same thing.
Although there were rules, obviously, and regulations, but there were rules and regulations. But if there were rules in place and that stuff never would have happened, why have you taken so long to even admit it? You knew when you were doing it, it was wrong.
Right.
Right? I mean, that's the thing. And again, a lot of guys were doing it, but please don't I'm just glad he admitted it, and we can move on. Because I do think he probably is a Hall of Famer. For no other reason than the fact that him and Sammy brought baseball back after the '94 strike and lockout.
And that should not be discounted.
No, that was an enormous. That might be the most influential thing he ever did.
Absolutely.
But I just, it smacks of a lack of accountability, and I've never taken him to be that guy. And then, unfortunately, the writers of this article agrees with him. But listen to this list: McGuire, Rodriguez, Bonds, Manny Ramirez, Roger Clemens, and Sammy Sosa. They were all doing it. But I don't know. Correct me if I'm wrong, Bill, but nobody on that list has ever come out and admitted it.
I don't remember anybody specifically saying.
If they were doing it and it wasn't wrong and it wasn't against the rules, why have none of them admitted it?
Right.
Because it was against the rules and it was wrong and they all knew it. And to the point where some of these guys ruined other people's lives lying about it.
Right.
If this, I would bet every dollar I have, if every one of these guys had come out and said, you know what? Yeah, I'm sorry, they'd all be in the Hall of Fame. I don't doubt they'd all be in the Hall of Fame.
Their accomplishments and their on the field performance.
This is a world of second chances.
Right.
Everybody, not Lance Armstrong, but almost everybody gets a second chance. Washington, D.C. elected Marion Barry a second time. I mean, my God. But, and again, it bothers me because of what it says about Mark that I've never felt it to be true. Mark McGwire worked his ass off. Alex Rodriguez worked his ass off. Barry Bonds, Roger Clemens, Manny. I saw Manny worked his ass off. These guys worked their ass because they also understood that what they were doing was very dangerous. And if they didn't take care of their bodies, you could kill yourself. So these guys all had personal trainers and they had quote unquote professionals like Balco and all of the things that go around that because they knew what they were doing. And again, if it wasn't against the rules and it was the culture, why didn't everybody just say, oh, yeah, I'm absolutely doing it? Because of all the reasons we know. And I wanted to mention it because, again, don't, and here's the other thing. The other problem I had with the quote was this. I didn't need to do it, and I apologize for it. Yet, if you don't do it, you don't hit 70 home runs.
No.
And I know maybe you hit 58, but right. the recovery aspect of doing steroids is what I believe gave them, all of them, the advantage. And you look at, if you remember McGuire's September that year, it was a monster September.
Right.
I mean, he homered, it felt like every day for the final 2 weeks of the season.
Sammy too.
Right. But that's the opposite of regular seasons.
Correct.
Go back. And listen, hey, John, I know you're hanging out back there and I'm going to make amends to you later, but I want to go back for the next show. Let's go back and look at McGuire's Septembers throughout his career and compare him statistically, September-wise, all throughout his career to the years that he was juicing. I'll bet you, and I have no idea what the numbers are. I bet you they're different. And I'm going to bet drastically different. I'll bet you, honestly, same thing with Bonds and same thing with A-Rod. Well, though, I don't know. I think A-Rod did it for most of, if not all of his career. But look at like Clemens before he left Boston. I think you're going to see it because it's not about, yes, your fast twitch muscle fibers and all those other things change, but it's about recovery. And in baseball, it is probably the hardest sport to play schedule-wise because of the recovery aspect. All right, let's off of that. That was kind of an unplanned piece of content, guys, but I just felt very strongly about that, commenting on that and talking about that because that, and correct me if I'm wrong again, Bill, but isn't that a monster headline?
It is. It's a really
Mark McGwire admitted it.
Exactly.
And in a roundabout way, by the way, he didn't come out and say I did it. He said I apologize for it. That's I would have preferred to say, yeah, you know what, I did it, and I'm sorry.
In the same sentence where he said there wasn't rules about it.
Right.
So,
it was not. Yeah, I did it, but it's the liberal defense, right? Everything is yes, but Trump. Yes, but and that's, but again, I don't like him any less today than I did yesterday. I love Mark, and he's a genuinely good guy. But I also probably think that there's a saturation point for those guys, and they're just tired.
Yeah.
Right. But again, it's their own fault. And that I hate to say it like that, but the fact of the matter is they made the decision that they have to live with. And I've talked about this with you before, Bill, and I think, John, I've talked with you as well. They lost the one thing you can't buy. And I think now it's dawning on them that they're never going to get their legacy.
Right.
And I got to believe that's painful.
Especially at this point in their life.
Yeah. And like I said, I keep saying it. My judgment of those guys as men has almost everything to do with the kind of people they were, as opposed to what they did, because they weren't alone. There was a crap ton of guys, and unfortunately, probably quite a few guys in the big leagues who wouldn't have been there. I played with some. I know some who wouldn't have been in the big leagues if they hadn't cheated, which means they took the job of someone who didn't cheat and didn't get there. So anyway, let's hop off to a place where I lived, unfortunately, a lot of times. The Rays have lost Shane McClanahan, and I believe for the year. He's going to have his injured form, and this is ad nauseum for me, Bill. I can't stand saying this. He injured his left forearm, evaluated by, and here's the thing. You'll always hear people talk about pitchers injuring their forearm, right? Because they don't want to say why the forearm is injured. The forearm is injured because it's connected to this. This is why the forearm gets injured. Because there's probably instability in the elbow joint, and things are happening in your forearm. Because when you think about pitching and repetition, you could play catch almost and not use your elbow every now and then. Like, you didn't have to use your elbow all the time, but you use your forearm all the time. And so basically it comes in. Here's my problem. They said it's highly unlikely he will pitch again this season, which already is a problem for me. Tommy John surgery, flexor surgery, or loose body removal are among the options under consideration. Less than ideal news, I think, at this point. Probably everything is on the table. Surgery is certainly an option. Certainly, surgery shouldn't be an option. It should be the option.
The option, yes.
Right now, get it done. They're doing some amazing things, guys, in orthopedic medicine. And maybe, you know what? I think I just remind you know what? I'm going to have one of our orthopedic surgeons, Dr. Tom Gill. I'm going to get him to come on the show.
That'd be great.
And we'll do a show talking about this. But
well, look at the list of Tampa Bay.
Oh yeah, no, I was going to get to that. But he missed the entire 2016 season after having Tommy John at the University of South Florida. He's 11-2 with a 3.2. Rays pitchers: Jeffrey Springs, Tommy John; Drew Rasmussen's elbow ligament internal brace surgery, kind of the same thing. Shane Baez, Tommy John; Josh Fleming, left elbow inflammation, currently in a rehab assignment. Get the surgery. Tyler Glasnow, that's back spasms. But John asked the question: how does it hurt the Rays for the rest of the season in the playoffs? It's devastating. But I always allude and go back to Bill Belichick. Next man up. Next man up. Now, listen, if McClanahan ends up being the icebreaker that stops them, it's not a one-man thing, right? You're talking Springs, Rasmussen, Baz. I think it's Shane Baez, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Fleming and Glasnow, they're all out. So this is a domino thing. It's not going to be just one guy. Because if you lose one guy and miss the playoffs, you weren't a playoff team anyway. And
Tampa Bay has a deep farm system. They develop pitchers regularly. But
you remember the conversation coming out of spring training, and I told you that great pitching staffs usually have 15 big league pitchers.
Right.
3 or 4 of them are in AAA. They're young enough that you can control them. They might be in the big leagues with everybody else, but you're deep enough to do that. This is why right here, because with very few exceptions, in the last 50 years, you're going to find it very hard to a staff of 11 or 12 guys that goes from April to the postseason. You're going to find probably more in the neighborhood of between 15 and 20, up and down kind of situation. And you need to have veterans who want to buy into something bigger than themselves and will stay in AAA because they know they'll get a shot in the big leagues, or the young players under control. And this is what Tampa does. They draft great baseball players. They keep them up to the 6 years of which they can before they get to free agency. It's why Tampa Bay, they haven't done it as much as they could have done it, but Tampa Bay is always very peculiar about call-ups and send-downs because of the September stuff, because they want to control their players for that extra year. Not a bad, and it's not a bad strategy. I'd do it as well. So anyway, McClanahan's probably not going to pitch again this year. And the Rays are going to have problems, I think, getting through the division and the playoffs. I don't think the division is going to be as challenging as the postseason, obviously. I think they're in. Kevin Brown, not the pitcher, is going to return to the Oriole play-by-play booth on Friday, today. And hey, Bill, we have to take John aside and talk to him because he's starting to turn into a member of the media. Yeah, he wrote, Brown was reportedly suspended by the team. No, he wasn't reportedly. He was. Suspended by the team. We don't use allegations or allegedly. We're okay with going, Brown was suspended by the team because the owners are idiots. And that's what I translated what you wrote here, John. Orioles chairman and CEO John Angelo, son of majority owner Peter Angelo, reportedly took offense to those comments, leading to Brown being suspended for over a week. I'll say it again. There are people who you learn and understand very quickly never had anything but yes people around them. And generally, these ownership groups are a lot like that. The good owners, they want contrarians. They're like Trump. They want people to disagree with them in the inner circle. But when we walk out of the room, we're all on the same page. Not in Baltimore. No. And it's another reason why the Angelos family has just butchered this organization for last 20 or 30 years, and it's sad. I thought they were turning the corner, but apparently what's happened is they've allowed the baseball people to get enough control over baseball operations that they've turned them into a legitimate franchise. Now the challenging part, and you know what? I think we'll get an owner on here as well. I know a couple of my former owners I can actually have on the phone or have on the show. Good owners want to be challenged. And then they'll convince you of why you're wrong, or they'll acquiesce and say, okay, yeah, you know what? Let's do that. But you have to trust your baseball people to do baseball things, and you can't meddle in the stupid stuff, because here's the problem with this. And I've said this a bunch of times on this show. You don't want your players answering BS questions and stupid stuff. You want them focused on the game. Half of the commentary in that clubhouse from reporters and questions from those reporters this past week has been, what do you think about the announcer being suspended? What do you think about ownership doing blah? And the only thing that this story can do is cascade in a bad way. There's no right answer other than, it's none of my business. That's what everybody should have said. And I'm assuming that's what everybody did, because you haven't heard the media run away with another big story about this.
What you did hear were the fans in Baltimore chanting Kevin Brown's name, bring him back. That's not what you want your fans doing either.
And it's one of the many reasons why I've always been in love with Baltimore fans. A quick story. I showed up in April or in September of 1988, the year the Orioles started 0-21. I made my major league debut, and I want to say there was 30,000 people in Memorial Stadium. And they were 7,000 games out of first place. They love their baseball, and they're great fans, and they deserve better. I watched the last out of this and thought it was awesome. The Phillies made a trade. And actually, people don't realize this. The Phillies made the only trade for an all-star pitcher this year. He was the only all-star pitcher traded. Michael Lorenzen threw a no-hitter. And then John actually alluded to some stuff that actually, in the back of my head, set off a couple warning signs. But he's 2-0. He tosses a no-hitter on Wednesday night. But here's some things that I am less than enthused about. The 124 pitches were a career high. And I talked in the past about high leverage pitching. Like if I throw 85 pitches in a 1-0 game, that's 100 times more taxing than 115 pitches in a 9-0 game. A no-hitter's the same way. It's max effort. It's physically as demanding as anything you can do. That's the most pitches he's ever thrown in a game. That doesn't make me smile. He had never thrown a complete game in the major leagues. He had only once had he gotten an out in the 9th inning, and that was last year. His longest score to start was 7 innings this year. Those stats and I don't think it's going to happen. I hope it doesn't happen. I pray it doesn't happen. But those are the kind of stats that end up getting a guy hurt. And it takes a couple days or a couple starts to have an impact. Bone chips, things like that. Those are where it happens. It happened to me. That's kind of how it happened to me in 93. My last start of the year, I threw 154 pitches in a 9-inning complete game in the World Series. And I'm pretty sure I hurt myself that night. Do it all again in a heartbeat. But I came out in 94 and I was hurt and I didn't realize it at first. But those aren't things you want to do. He said he had dreamed of throwing a no-no. He had never come close before that night. But again, this is the second time in his career, his big league career, the second time in his career he's gotten an out in the 9th inning. That's a no-no. That's a no-no. And like I said, it's a different game and I understand it. But I can tell you that I had probably pitched into the 9th inning 30 to 50 times before I got to the big leagues. Maybe 30 might be, 50 might be an exaggeration, but the fact of the matter is getting guys to do it in the first. So I hope he's okay and hope everything works out, and I'm sure he's going to be fine. But if something happens, look back on this one. You remember, I know, Bill, you remember this, the Johan Santana no-hitter.
Right.
That ended his career.
Yeah.
So
and
anyway.
Lorenzen is the hottest pitcher since July 1st.
Yeah.
In the major league.
Last 6 starts, 1.11. And again, it's kind of surprised me. He was the only all-star pitcher. Because you think about, Scherzer and Verlander and those guys were traded. None of those guys were on the all-star team.
His numbers are Curt Schilling playoff numbers, ERA-wise.
Yeah, but my favorite part of the whole night was watching the guys because there was another story. And John's going to get me the kid's name. Kid made his major league debut in this game for the Phillies and homered in his first at bat.
Oh, Wilson. What's his first name on?
Yes.
Yeah.
And watching his dad go from jumping up and down and family going absolutely crazy to his dad in tears was that's the kind of stuff for me that I absolutely love. And he hit a bomb too, because he's been going. He's one of those guys, a career 4A player in a lot of teams' minds. Like he's a power hitting minor league guy. I don't know if you remember this guy, but there was a guy back in the day, a long time ago, named Joey Meyer. And Joey Meyer was with the Brewers, and Joey Meyer hit 35 to 45 home runs every year in the minor leagues. But he was always in AAA hitting them. And got a couple cups of coffee in the big leagues, but it just didn't translate. The consistency didn't translate, and that's where I heard the term 4A player the first time. And that's not a knock. It's just the teams think a guy he's a really good minor leaguer and his skill set doesn't translate. But this kid obviously big power bat in the minor leagues. I think he's 28 years old. But what a great highlight. And then the other piece was, I don't know if you saw it, the team running on the field, but after a no-hitter, there are certain different types of reactions, right? Those guys were so genuinely excited that he did it. And it's like little kids. It was awesome. The highlight was awesome, I thought. And then lastly, John, in defense of himself, decided he was going to bury me in Bobby Witt Jr. stats to confirm his point the other day, which was true. And the only reason I questioned it is because for one of two reasons. maybe we missed somebody, but if it was true, it's an unbelievable statistic, right? And here's what it was. Witt is the first player to ever go 20-30 in his first 2 seasons. And I knew Bill would look it up too. Bill had looked around because most of the guys, and let me just throw this list of names out there, just the top list, this top players. Willie Mays, Bobby and Barry Bonds, Vladimir Guerrero, none of them went 20-30 in either their first or second years. Most of them didn't do it because most of them were in an era when you called up young guys in September. So their first season or two was September call-up stuff. And that was what you did to get these guys acclimated. But more importantly than that, there are only 43 players who have hit 30 homers and stolen 30 bases. These four, the four that we just talked about, did it a combined 13 times. 30-30. And 30-30 is I mean, 40-40 is absurd. And I think the only 2 guys to do it initially were 2 guys that were steroid guys, Canseco and A-Rod.
Right.
But 3 players this year have a chance at 30-30. And please don't go to sleep on the fact that all 3 of these guys just turned like 12 years old. Ronald Acuna has 26 with 53 bags. Corbin Carroll, who is a rookie, has 21 with 36 stolen bases. Bobby Witt has 20 and 34. And so and by the way, if I say Cedric Mullins, you know who I'm talking about, Bill?
I do.
Okay,
but,
I don't.
Oh,
he was the last 30-30 kid in 2021.
Yeah.
2 and 18 and 19 and none between 2012 and 2018.
Yeah,
there is an enormous influx of young talent in baseball, exciting young talent. And you could possibly have 3 sub 25 or 26-year-olds, 25-year-olds. Acuna's how old? 23, 24?
Yeah.
Yeah. Who could go 30-30 this year? That's awesome.
In doing the research on this, it amazed me that only 43 guys have gone 30 for 30 as long as baseball has been played.
Right.
And the Bonds, father and son, are 10 of the 43 times it happened. They each have 5.
Is it 43 players or 43?
43 times, and 13 of the players on the list have done it multiple times.
Okay.
And Barry and Bobby each did it 5.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if you think about it, it makes sense, right? Because when you think about the early days of baseball, the home run wasn't a thing.
Right.
Right. The stolen base was. And then you go into the 60s, 70s, and I'm going to guess a lot of the 30-30 stuff. And I'm only including, modern baseball in the sense that not 5 balls was a walk and 4 strikes was a strikeout kind of crap.
Right.
I'm talking about, from the 60s on. I'm going to bet most of those seasons are from the 60s on.
Yeah.
Because
Mays did it in the 50s.
Right. Well, yeah. Okay. Well, I'm sorry. Let's caveat anything with Willie Mays.
Right.
He was a freak in every great way possible, and probably even a better man than he was a player, which is hard to be, since he was probably. I still think physically, Willie Mays and Mickey Mantle were the 2 most physically gifted human beings prior to like 1980. I would put Bo Jackson and Dion in that category, but the stolen base was a bigger thing, and then you had the period of time where in the 90s and I think into the 2000s, the stolen base became out of touch, out of fashion,
right?
Because Moneyball didn't give away outs, right? So if you weren't an 85% guy, you didn't steal. Now, if the new rules coming back, you're going to see the stolen base. You are already seeing it.
Yeah, the stolen base numbers this year are very much higher.
But Carroll and Acuna, obviously, but Carroll and Witt both are doing this, just coming straight up out of the minor leagues,
right?
And that's pretty breathtaking when you consider what they're doing. And then I'm going to close off. No top 5 list this week, but I am. And by the way, quickly, the Rangers have won 8 of 9.
And Scherzer threw a gem.
Yeah, Scherzer's throwing like the Dodger Scherzer when they traded for him. And the Angels are just going the other way.
Yeah.
I am headed out of town this weekend. I'm going to be in Arizona on Saturday for the 25th anniversary of the Arizona Diamondback organization. The organization is 25 years old this year. And there's going to be something like 60 former players there. And apparently the all-time Arizona team they wanted there as well. So that's going to be fun. It'll be a weekend of ass grabbing and joke telling and stupid stuff. And then I'm flying on the red eye Saturday night to Philadelphia, where Sunday, the 13th, we'll be celebrating the 30th anniversary of the 1993 Phillies team. We'll be doing it without some of the key members of that team, including Captain Darren Dalton. But that will be fun because I think that city, I heard people when I played there in the 90s talk about the 64 Phillies, the Whiz Kids and this amazing team. And what was it, the Mets team, the Miracle Mets?
Miracle Mets, 69.
Right? That 69 team has a connection with the city of New York that will never go away. This 93 team in Philadelphia is the exact same way. There will always be a very strong tie to the fans in Philadelphia with the 1993 team because we were such a unique bunch. Unique is a very kind word for that group, but so that's what I'm going to do this weekend. I'm going to try and take a lot of video, and maybe next week or the week after we'll do a show talking about it and showing some of the video of because I'll talk to the guys and get some.
I think you can promise everybody that there will be stories from this weekend scattered throughout the next 4 or 5 shows.
Yeah, I would imagine we'll have a couple stories. Hopefully none of them will involve police and bail money. But it's possible, especially in Philadelphia. But then I'll be back and up and running for the show on Tuesday next week. So that's what I'm going to do this weekend. One quick plug, OutKick.com. Any place you find your podcast, Spotify, Apple, any place you can find the Curt Schilling Baseball Show. Would love for you to recommend it. Pass it along in social media and help the audience grow because I don't know how I think the reception has been very good, but I love doing this. I love talking about baseball, and I love telling stories about baseball. I have enough of them, and I haven't even scratched the surface of some of the stories. Some of them I can't tell due to non-disclosure and legal things. But everything else that I can tell, I will over the course of time. So you guys have a wonderful weekend. Bill, John, good stuff. And we'll catch up with you guys all on Tuesday of next week. Have a great weekend, guys.